Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Hive Live. I'm so excited because last week we were together, you and I, here with Luis Rendijo, and I can't get your last name. Say your last name for everyone.
Renjifo.
Rendijo. I don't understand. It's been like, if you saw the takes that we took, it's like, forget it. This is live. We're live here. So anyways, last week the taping was about marriage matters. And he's still here.
Here I am.
Here he is. But this week we're talking about the next generation and is it worth saving? And I would say yes.
Yes, absolutely.
I want to tell you a little bit about Lewis and why what he says matters. I think I so much respect you. I've been in his courses before, his teaching and trainings. And I will say there were, when I met you in 2018,
I think so, yeah.
And in 2019, we started working together. That's when I began to see transformation in my life. And it was because you poured into me. And do you remember, and I teach this when I do big events now, I ask everyone to put on their card, you got a little piece of paper. And on that little piece of paper, that's where you can write your problems. And we're going to take it, we're going to crumple them up, and we're going to throw it away. And I'll never forget, it was you that I was with. And you said, there's your paper, write your stuff down, now throw it away. And then you said, now, on this big wall right here, what does that person look like who you imagine yourself being? And you got me to talk about my dreams and, what I would look like, what I would talk like. And then and you said, you have this whole wall. And then I remember you saying, what is the word that comes out of your mouth? And I said, wow. And then you said to me, wow gets to crush it. And so I began to write, wow gets to crush it on everything. And I started to believe this. I started to believe that I could achieve it, Lewis. And I want to thank you because today we have wow nights of worship.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. A few weeks back, we had our first night of worship. It was called Wow Nights, Women of Worship.
I love it.
Isn't that amazing?
That
wow.
is
amazing. And I've gone on to teach how other women can experience wow. If you could just imagine what God created you to be, who God says you are, versus what the enemy wants you to believe. Because the enemy is he's like you said, clever.
Yes.
And he's out to steal the identity of this next generation. If he can achieve that, then our next generation grows up confused on who they are, on their abilities and talents. And I'm on a mission. That's why Be Unstoppable nonprofit is coming to change that.
Okay.
And that's why you're here, because you 100% support that as well.
Absolutely.
And you're doing events like Tilt training. Tell us about Tilt training and what's going on.
So when I first started working with couples, by the way, thanks for that intro.
It's all true. You didn't know I was going to say that.
No, I didn't.
You didn't even remember, did you?
No, I do remember.
Yeah.
I do remember Walk Us to Crush It. Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And, I believe that because I believe that in all believers, we were all meant to be warriors. And I think a big part of the deception that we've bought into is that we've lost sight of that warrior mentality, especially men, which we talked a little bit about in the last session. So I believe that the biggest challenge that's happening for teenagers and many of our kids these days, one is there is a separation of the family. I shared earlier that 70% of couples are getting a divorce here in the United States. That leaves us with 30%. So if 30 couples out of 100 remain married, half of those folks are happily married. So there's a lot of desperation going on with kids trying to find their own identity. Our parents are the models. We as parents are the models of the behavior for our children.
Yeah.
They look to us to identify not only what the world is all about, but who they are really. And we've spent so much time trying to make the almighty dollar that we've really have not made the time to implant the seeds of love and joy and peace and the fruit of the Spirit that they desperately need. And so, but one of the things that I was we were talking a little bit earlier before the show was that, one of the things is the devil is not really respected. And I don't mean respected as in we look up to him, but we don't recognize how deceptive the devil actually really is.
How much power he thinks he has some.
Well, you got to think about this. I mean, in Roe v. Wade, when that law came into play, that women had the right to an abortion, that was all a huge spiritual attack. And you got to understand that, you got to understand the type of mindset that it takes to be able to convince a woman who is pregnant with their own child and who is carrying a life that they helped create within their own womb, and to convince that woman that that is no longer a child, and that is now the equivalent of a maggot growing inside them, that it needs to be squished and destroyed and removed. I want you to think about the type of mentality that it takes to convince a woman who is powerful, who is amazing, who is made in the image of God.
Wow.
To convince her that that child is not a human being and is not even worthy of life.
Whoa, that's a deception.
You've got to understand that the level of deception that it took, and that women to this day are still completely convinced of that. And men are completely convinced of that. I got to tell you that is, you've got to understand what we're up against. But really the truth is, if you understand that that's what we're up against, then all the more why we should be stepping up.
As warriors.
As warriors.
We're like fighting with little butter knives.
Yeah.
Versus the sword.
And we're coming with sticks and stones to a war battle with
Life
40
and death.
40 caliber guns, and we're not really fighting the war that we should be.
Well, actually, fighting. Those that are believing those lies have just surrendered and said, "Oh,
yes,
this isn't true."
Yeah.
That is like extreme.
Yes, a very big veil has been placed over the lives of many, many homes and here around the world for sure. And I think it's still happening now. But our focus today being about children. I shared in the last session in our last segment that because of entertainment, we're really falling apart in the home. And that's now being transferred down to the children. We've lost sight of our responsibilities to be what we're supposed to be as a parent to our children. See, I ask every single couple that comes into my office, what is the purpose, what is the responsibility of a parent? What are they supposed to do? And the usual response that I get is that they're supposed to make sure that they're sheltered, make sure that they're fed, make sure that they're taken care of, make sure they go to a good school, make sure that they live in a decent neighborhood. That's some of the answers that I keep getting from many parents. But I rarely, if ever, get the answer that I think is very, very important, and that is, are we mentoring our children?
Raising them up in the ways of the Lord.
Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. We are not training up our children. We are not training them up and mentoring them the way we're supposed to.
It says in Joel 1:3, it said the word of the Lord says, tell your children of it, and let your children tell their children, and their children to another generation. We have an obligation to teach our children the ways of the Lord, the right ways. You know, you're saying that entertainment is so big.
Yeah.
When we were young, families did activities together, and they would go to a park and they would have fun together, and then they would leave. Or they would, I remember growing up, we would go to an arcade and have fun, and then we would leave. The Xbox, the games, they didn't exist.
No, they didn't.
We played games. We played board games. We would learn Monopoly, about finances. They were teachable moments created to teach our children, teach them how to play Scrabble, teach them, you know, all the different games, have fun and laughter. You know, my husband, he has recently said, we're going to have dinner and then play games for 15 minutes. I'm like, you want to play games? He's like, yeah. And we have all these games in our garage. So we have a goal that we're going to do this as a family together. But now, instead of going to do these activities, you just stick them on the tube, and parents don't have to parent. And that's the entertainment. That's a deception.
Yeah, one of the biggest deceptions that the devil has been able to create and establish for the world is to convincing them that he doesn't exist. And so that's why we have, you know, that for a long time that Christmas was, you know, the most celebrated and the most profitable time of the year for many retailers. Now it's October 31st. Halloween.
That is so sad. I did not this was my first year. I was deceived to participate in Halloween my entire life until this past year. I had a strong conviction that how could I participate in this event?
Yes.
And it made me really sad. I have a friend, she does my hair, and across the street from her, there were big, huge skeletons and demonic beings in front of her house. And I'm thinking, how is this whole world, like so many people are...
And it gets even, if you go on even beyond that, if you talk to any witch, practicing witch or practicing warlock, they will tell you that is the holiest day of the year. They literally go to the mountaintops overlooking the cities, and they actually pray for Satan to curse and to be overseer over that city.
But people
and they
don't
do
know
it on
that.
December 31st.
So people aren't aware of that. And they're praying over our children.
Absolutely. And then we talk about social media. You know what the number one contributor of teen suicide amongst girls is?
Social media.
Social media. Social media.
It's big. My
And
daughter.
Same thing for boys. Same thing for boys. For girls, it's Instagram, and for boys, it's YouTube.
Or TikTok.
Or TikTok, now becoming TikTok. You know, one of my favorite authors, Leonard Sachs, he has several books out. Leonard Sachs, S-A-X. And he is, I went to go see him recently, and I strongly recommend, if you want to know more about this topic, you can look up any one of his books. They're available on audio, and they're available on legible form. Leonard Sachs, and he is phenomenal. He really breaks it down to what's happening right now in the corruption of our teenagers these days. And he really takes a scientific approach to what's causing our kids to no longer desire to want to be a part of society. They're just really no longer, there's no enthusiasm for them to get out and create friendships and really develop this social connection.
And so that has to be broken, because I've also witnessed the opposite. I've seen kids be very recluse, and they don't talk to anyone. They have the hoodies over their head. They sit in the corner. They don't talk. And then put them in a room with a bunch of other kids like that. Put them in take them to a youth camp and watch them be transformed. I've witnessed it. Recently, these kids come back. Now they're all friends. They're talking. I've also witnessed the youth, those that are in my band, in my ministry band. There are these young adults that are serving who are dying and thriving to be poured into, to be mentored. They want that. So there's also this deception that's happened to us parents and adults that say they won't let us talk to them. They don't want us to pour into them, let them be. That is what the enemy wants us to do. He wants us to take a blind side, let it just happen, instead of saying, no, 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 it's time. Let me read you this verse, Psalm 78, verses 4-6. The word says, we will not hide from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children. It's a commandment. He commanded our fathers to teach to their children. He commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that we may teach to the next generation and the next generation. And I think it's time that parents need to wake up, stop being blindsided that allowing the kids to just stay in their rooms. I have a 17-year-old. And if I never said a word to her, she'd stay in her room all day, look on her phone, not come out. I have to be intentional to eat with her, talk with her. She's in ministry with me. So we're together all the time.
Yes.
It's an obligation.
As you're talking about this and you're sharing this, Audrey, I got to tell you that there's a lot of families out there who feel like that there's no hope, and
They're
they
lost.
really don't know. Well, what's the next step? It's easy for me to talk, to sit here in the studio, and to be able to boldly tell people you got to step up, you got to mentor your children and whatnot. But what's the first step?
Yeah.
What is the next step for a lot of these folks?
That's good. Come on.
And I got to tell you that the best thing that I can tell you is the first step is to begin to get right with yourself. You need to get disciplined with yourself. And even if it means starting with something small. Take 5 minutes out of your day and just get into the Word of God. Just 5 minutes. If you can download an application on your phone and listen to the book of Proverbs one day out of the one chapter per day, all 31 days of the month. And it'll take you 5 to 6 minutes just to listen to one chapter.
You got through the whole book.
You can go through the whole book in one entire month.
That's
and
good.
Just start with that. And then little by little, you can begin to grow from there. From 5 minutes, you can take 5 minutes and turn it into 10 minutes. And add 5 minutes of prayer. Just pray for 2 to 5 minutes. Just pray. Start with 1 minute. Start with something. But begin the discipline of creating a habit that begins a lifestyle. And then from there, start spending time with your kids. How do you spell love to a child? How do you spell Love to a child? Time. That's how you spell love to them. You've got to spend time with them.
Yes.
One of the things and I can tell you, I have a 19-year-old son, I have a 17-year-old daughter, and I have a 13-year-old daughter. So I'm speaking from personal experience.
Yes.
It was a time where I was beginning to lose them. And one of the things that I began doing very early on was I began spending time with them. I began implementing daddy dates, where I would take my children and I would just take them out. We would go for ice cream, we would go for walks at the beach, we would go for a walk in the park, and we would begin talking. And I would begin asking them questions, very simple questions, like who are your friends and what do you like about them? Just simple questions. Just get into their business, get into their thoughts. Stir them up to have a conversation. In the beginning, it's very quiet.
Yeah.
At the beginning, it doesn't start out like, oh yeah, well this and that. But inevitably, as you begin spending time with them on a regular basis, they begin sharing with you. They begin opening up to you. They begin telling you what's going on in their mind.
One of the greatest times that you can spend with your children is in the car.
Yes.
You can start there. On their way to school, be intentional. Or on their way back home. I drive my daughter to her job, and it's a 25-minute drive to her job when she works twice a week. And in those car moments, it can either go one of two ways. You didn't do that.
That's right.
You didn't do this. You didn't do that. Or it can be, you know, tell me about your date with your boyfriend. She has a boyfriend now, right? And instead of freaking out as a mom, so I got to tell you, moms, there are moms in this that are listening that your daughter or son may start dating, and I know for me it took everything inside me not to flip out when she said she liked someone and she wanted to start dating this person. The conversation could have gone one of two ways, and instead I embraced it and I was like, yeah, I can do this. Tell me, what is his name? Oh, wow. What do you like about him? And because I began to communicate with her and listen to her and allow her to tell me without freaking out, she began to open up. So we can shut our kids off or invite them in.
That's right. And I think it's really important to really, one of the things that I do my best in reminding our parents is to remind them that they themselves were their children's age at one point.
Yeah.
And so one very important message, or at least thought, that I would definitely love to leave as we, get close to closing up here, and that is this: what kind of what ambiance do you want to have in your home?
That's good.
What experience do you want your home to feel like? What experience do you want your children to actually have? Because I got to tell you, you cannot leave a child to suggest their own experience, meaning that they want to go out and have fun all the time and they don't want to have to worry about responsibility.
You need it.
But I got to tell you that one experience that is often missing in the home is the experience of love and compassion and just listening to them. My 13-year-old daughter said something to me. Literally, it was this morning. I was asking her some questions, and I asked her, what is it that you like about my relationship with you? And she said, you know what, Dad? You don't judge me. You don't make me feel like some of the dumb mistakes and some of the dumb things that I've done. You don't make me feel bad for them. So there's a really powerful book that I really, really like. It's called Healing the Shame That Binds You by, I'm trying to remember the name of the author. But Healing the Shame That Binds You really talks about all the shame, the ways that shame has affected all of us. And really, sometimes we begin speaking to our children, and we don't realize that intertwined in our language is shame. Shame on you for this, shame on you for that. And I got to tell you, if you had a friend from work, or you had a friend from church, or you had a next door neighbor that every time they opened their mouth, there was something negative and shameful that they had to point out about you, you probably wouldn't want to be their friend. And if you're doing that to your children right now, I really invite you to put the mirror and talk to yourself the way you talk to your children, and ask yourself the question, am I shaming my children? I'm not saying that when they do something that's inappropriate that you don't course correct, but you get a lot further with honey than you do with vinegar.
Oh, I like that.
So that's right. So I would submit that it's really important to sometimes let your listening do the talking by just listening to them and really hearing them out. That really goes a long way. Another thing is when you open your mouth that you speak blessings on them. Sometimes we'll get into a little tiff between my wife and I about something that one of our kids have done, and the question that pops up for either one of us is, are we speaking life into that situation?
Right.
And then sometimes when we're really up against it, we're really not ready to speak life into that situation. We need to take a step back, take a couple of deep breaths, and really synchronize and get it grounded in what it is that we're up to, really synchronize on what our goal and our vision is for our relationship.
And to be patient, because love is patient.
Yes.
Love isn't, love is kind.
Love
doesn't
not boast.
condemn.
That's right.
And if we really were to take the model of love in the biblical terms.
1 Corinthians 13, absolutely.
And put that all over our home, maybe the words that we speaking life into our children, we would see a new generation.
I've had clients come into my office, and they have never heard their parents say the words "I love you" not one time.
Wow.
And that was just heartbreaking to hear that. And so,
or I'm sorry,
or I was wrong, or my very favorite, the F word. Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
Yeah.
These are really wise words being spoken today. When you have a program where the youth get to participate
Yes,
And
they can find me at my website, my corporate website called Compass Trainings, compasstrainings.com, compasstrainings.com. And you look on the Tilt tab and you click on the Tilt tab. It tells you all about what it is that we do, when our next training is for teenagers. We have adult seminars as well, and we do transformational work where we kind of get into your jelly a little bit, and we
it's
figure out
good.
what you're about, and
Peel back the onion, the
we peel
layers.
back that onion and really seek the core of what it is that, where you're functioning from. Are you functioning from scarcity? Are you functioning from fear? Are you functioning from anger? Or are you functioning from the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, and self-control? Are you functioning from a biblical mindset or a world mindset? We're not supposed to be functioning from the world.
No, we're not. Wow. Powerful information.
Thank you.
Powerful. I hope those that have been watching right now, you feel fed today. I know I always learn from you, Louis, when we talk, and this isn't going to be the last. I am excited what 2024 may bring
Yes,
to
absolutely.
us.
Looking forward to it.
We're talking about some good stuff
Yeah.
that's coming, so be excited, be waiting for what's coming. How can people reach you then on Compass?
At the Compass Trainings, www.compasstrainings.com, compasstrainings.com, just like a compass. And it's pretty simple.
One thing I will take away from this today is that sometimes what we want for our children, we need to first take a look at ourselves as parents to see where we're coming from and where our heart posture is for our children. And I think if we began to take a look at that and pray life over our children, we may start seeing a breakthrough very quickly. You can change a whole generation in just speaking life into their existence, into who they are. I see a lot of hope coming. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll see each other again soon.
Absolutely. And I just remember the name of that author. It's Bradford.
Okay, the book again?
Yes, Healing the Shame That Binds You by Bradford.
Healing the Shame That Binds You
By
by
Bradford.
Bradford. Get the book.